everyone. This is the last session of day 2 of the Future Food Convention. For those who've been with us since yesterday, thank you. And for those who are new to the convention, let me quickly take you through the program. For this year's Future Food Convention, we've pulled together some very special people from across the globe who are doing incredible work in the area of food sovereignty. Like we have so far, in the remaining sessions as well, we'll talk about ways to achieve that much desired goal through sustainable rural development, localized value chains, and put before you some very interesting business models. For this session, we have with us a very interesting duo, David and Marlon from Teikei Coffee. I'm personally extremely excited about this session. Teikei is a community-supported coffee brand that brings high-quality Arabica coffee from the mountains of Oaxaca in Mexico. Their annual coffee harvest to Europe is sent in a sailing ship, which is their way to reduce the impact of transportation of food on the environment. And this is an extremely interesting business venture that puts farmers, sustainability, and good quality coffee at the center. Welcome to the Future Food Convention, David and Marlon. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for having us. Very glad to be here.
Thanks also from my side.
Why don't we start with the two of you introducing yourselves, the work that you do at Teikei, and also maybe tell us a little bit about what the name means and how you got around to choosing the name.
Sure, I can just start and maybe Marlon can tell you also about the name. My name is David and I live in Mexico. I am from Mexico and I work with the sustainability programs with the producers, with the coffee producers in Oaxaca.
Nice. Yeah, my name is Marlon Rommel, and since 4 years I'm working with Teikei Coffee as a co-founder of this venture in the development of the value chain, and especially my main focus is taking responsibility for the members over here in Europe. So taking care of everyone that's part of Teikei Coffee, that the people are getting their coffee and are happy with the product. That's what I'm mainly focusing on. And just a few words about Teikei, where the name comes from. It's actually a Japanese name or word, meaning working together. You could translate it, but it also means community-supported agriculture in Japanese. So there's already the first hint of what we do. Like you already said, we're about community-supported coffee. So community-supported agriculture is kind of our core concept that we're thriving after. And that's already hidden in the name, but in a more exotic way.
When you talk about working with farmers in Mexico, how did you go about creating that network?
So I've been working for more than 10 years now with coffee producers in Mexico. And when I first started working with Teikei, I developed, along with my partner Anna, a group of producers specifically to work in a CSA way. So the first step was getting the producers together. They already, most of them already knew me. I already knew most of them. And we also opened the doors for other producers to join. And we had a first workshop to explain the model. It's very different for the normal economy, coffee economy in Mexico and in the world. So at first it was kind of challenging trying to bring this concept with the people, but in Mexico we also have a word that sounds very familiar to Teikei, and it's teikio, and teikio means working together. So in a way, I imagine that in an ancestral way, it's already an idea that we have here. So I try to join these two ideas, what we really want in a CSA model and the teikio meaning in Mexican. And by joining these, we've been working with the producers with more in the production than in the system, because the system is like the model is pretty straightforward.
We'll get into your business model, but you want to talk to me a little bit about community-supported agriculture and ways in which you're making it sustainable, and what are the practices that, how do you promote it amongst the farmers, and what are the practices that you include?
Sure. You want to join? You want to jump in, Marlon, and explain about the model, and then I'll go back to the producers?
Yeah, that's a good plan. So community-supported agriculture is nowadays a very popular way of getting very good local produce, mainly used for vegetables, but also for milk or dairy products, and also sometimes with meat and similar. That's where it's mainly used in these days, and the main difference to our normal system, I would say, is it's working next to the market. So we as a consumer become kind of co-producers with a farmer. That means we take over a share of the harvest. We don't pay per kilo, but we pay per percentage of the farm, so to say. So by doing that, I get a weekly basket full of vegetables or produce, and that the amount and also the variety, it depends on what's on there. Was it a good harvest? Was it a bad harvest? So I take over the risk together with the producers, and I get a very I got a very close connection to the farmer, because I don't do this just for 1 week, but a main concept here is that this works in the long term. So normally it's at least 1 year of commitment of either side to say, okay, I take a harvest share for at least this 1 year, so that there's a certain stability and certainty for both sides. And this creates a lot of sustainable potential, because it creates very even power balance. It creates high transparency, and we just as a producer, you get a very good picture of how is this grown, because not always, but often in local CSAs you have the chance to also work on the farms. This, of course, for our business model is a little bit more difficult, because we're trying to do community-supported agriculture, connecting continents, connecting Mexico to Germany and Switzerland at the moment. So just jumping over there and co-working with farmers, or the other way around, that farmers can come over here and roast together with us. Of course, that's difficult, but there's ways how we can close the gap, and we are working in a similar way, I would say. But maybe you want to jump in at this point, David.
I'll ask you another question before we let David answer the second part of the question. For those who don't really, or maybe are new to the idea of community-supported agriculture, do you want to sort of really break down what the model is? So how does a consumer pay? How do you decide the price? What does that really mean for the farmers? Would you like to sort of talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So do you want me to explain the concept or the way that we do it?
I want you to explain how you do it.
Okay. So Teikei Coffee works more or less in the way of coffee subscriptions. So you do not, you can also buy just 1 kilo of Teikei Coffee and try it, but the main idea and our main revenue comes in from subscriptions. That means we have members. We have actual members as opposed to buyers. So as a member, you say, okay, I think I drink about 4 kilos of coffee per year, and these 4 kilos of coffee are pre-financed. So I decide to join Teikei Coffee today, but I pay for the entire next year. That's the idea, to give the stability, to give the long-term commitment, so that also the farmers know, okay, there is the stability, there are these members. So far in Germany, we've got around 600 members that support the model and as members. And yeah, we're collecting these in a cooperative form over here and sending the money over there to Mexico so that David and the farmers can do their amazing work, which he's going to highlight more later on. Send the coffee back here, get the coffee in the storing and roast it freshly every few weeks and send it freshly to the individual members of Teikei Coffee. So that's kind of how the circle works. And yeah, the really special thing is, like I said, you will not get Teikei Coffee in a standard supermarket because we want this close connection. We want as few steps in between as possible. We want the most direct trade possible, and we make very, very little compromise. In some points, we make compromise by also giving our coffee to cafes or zero waste stores here in Germany. So that's the only resellers that you will find within Teikei Coffee, because that's movements we want to support also with. But yeah, I think that's the most unique thing. You will not find this coffee ever in a supermarket shelf. That will not happen because we want this membership model to really come through strongly.
And how do you decide the price with the farmers?
Because
yeah,
just to link that to the production part, the idea is to use money to pay for the work that needs to be done to produce coffee. And it sounds kind of strange, instead of saying just to buying the coffee. But the whole idea is that the production costs are covered, so the producer can focus on producing and have his or her livelihood economically solved with this activity. So this is the basic idea, to figure out what is the production cost and cover this production cost with the money flowing from the members. So it's in the normal coffee economy, it has nothing to do like this. In the normal coffee economy, prices are set by an agenda in the case of Arabica and Robusta in New York and London Stock Exchange. So it's like, I'm not an economist, but it's like a simple way to see it is by supply and demand. Depending on how much supply and how much demand there is, the prices are fixed. And there's also other factors involved, like the futures and kind of betting, kind of bets. And this system is pretty. This system is outside of the production, of the reality of the farmers, because producers are affected by the frosts in Brazil or by China growing more coffee, just to put two common examples, right? But the production in their farms, in their towns, stays kind of in a way the same, and sometimes it may even be more expensive to pay for labor hand, for example, or for tools. And once this system is out of that reality, it no longer becomes viable to live out of coffee. And this is quite a reality in Mexico. There's a lot of people leaving their coffee farms. They go to the cities to find jobs in the cities and send money back to their houses. So our idea is to tie all of the economy of coffee production with the reality of the producers, in order to make it something profitable for them, but also to make it a living activity, right? So this is like the general idea. And one of the another difference that the CSA model has is that we try to not see it as buying the product, but paying for the product. And it's different because once you put money for the production cost, there can be risks that both sides take. So you can pay beforehand your share of the production, and should there be a problem like a disease or a pest or something that happens with the production, that that year there's going to be less coffee in your share. But it's also, our idea is also to do it the other way around, so that if you pay beforehand your share of production, and that year was a very good year and the composts were very significant and productivity raised, then you will have like a bigger share out of the same unit, or out of the same economic unit, right? So it's kind of bringing together the producers and the co-producers, the farmers and the drinkers, and to share all of these risks, but also the benefits of the long term. And finally, in this sense, our work is really different and really sustainable, socially sustainable, because coffee producers sometimes, well, coffee producers never have a certainty what's going to happen in the next year. So they don't know if there's going to be buyers, coffee buyers. They don't know how much they're going to pay. They don't know if their production will cover the living cost. And these three situations, we solve them because we make long-term commitments, and the producers which we work with are constant. It's not that I go there and I try coffee and I say, okay, this is a good coffee, we'll have it, and this, no, we won't have it. We are working to develop good coffee with a group of producers that we are committed, and we see them, or yeah, they are part of the group. So they're not. There's a link, and they're not separate from Teikei, right? So this is certainty for them, with very good prices, obviously higher than the normal market price, but also with the certainty that we're gonna be interested in having the complete harvest, and they don't have to struggle to see who's gonna buy, how much is gonna pay. This is solved beforehand in a way.
I also think it's a great way to just sensitize people to the, to the harvesting process, where our food comes from, how much it actually costs. I think a subscription model like this is a great way to sort of sensitize and inform people of that. Let's come to the way you transport the coffee to your consumers now. It's a really interesting idea. And how long did it take you guys to actually sort of make it happen? What led you to, I mean, it's kind of obvious what led you to choose this path, but it couldn't have been easy to do. So tell us a little bit about the sailing ship and how that actually works out.
Yeah, so actually there's a nice story, because also one of our partners in working in Latin America, he's a Costa Rican expert for biodynamics. He got to know this initiative, Timber Coast, who's running the Aventura, the sailing vessel that we're transporting with, and he said, "Okay, guys, if we're doing this coffee, then that's the way to go with the transportation." So it just sort of popped up on in the landscape, this opportunity, and seeing this this opportunity back then was like, okay, yeah, that's basically the only way we can transport this coffee if we really want to be true to what we stand for. So yeah, we quickly contacted the Timber Coast company, and yeah, got on board literally. And I think 2017 or 2018 was the first shipment that we got over from Mexico to Hamburg in Germany. And yeah, it was 11 tons back then in coffee. And yeah, it's important to us that also with our transportation to kind of rattle up and to set a signal, to make a signal of that things have to change in the globalized market, that yeah, container shipping is not gonna sustain, is not sustainable. And I think that's very, very much known, and there's alternatives out there. It's just a very small, tiny ship, and that will not make all the difference, but it makes all the signals, and it makes a lot of yeah, noise is the wrong word, because it actually does not make any noise while sailing it over there, but it makes noise in another sense. And that's why we like it, and that's why yeah, we're partners of Timber Coast since 2018. And yeah, it's definitely something that we want to pay extra money for, and that our members are willing to pay extra for. It's really not cheap. We pay around €4 per kilo of green bean coffee just to transport with the sailing ship. So that's insanely much if you compare it to what we would pay in a conventional way. But yeah, like I said, we want to be consequent, and the sailing ship is many times seen something like, so if I tell about Teikei Coffee, I often hear, you are the guys who sail the coffee, and in the back of my head I'm always like, yeah, we are the ones sailing the coffee, but that's not what we're about. We're about the community supported coffee, but the sailing ship is seen many times as well. So it seems to be something very important to the people as well, and setting new standards in transportation, and setting a sign against externalized costs, which is common practice today in transportation, that we or companies create harm to the nature, and therefore also to other people not involved, not benefiting, that they do not pay for, and in turn the consumers of their products do not pay for. So in that area we talk of externalized costs, and that's something that we do not want to try, or that we're trying not to create. Of course, it's a very difficult thing to do, not to have any externalized costs in your product, but we're trying to minimize it as much as we can.
I know that there are certain other measures that you undertake as well to, sort of further reduce your negative impact on the environment. Would you like to talk about some of them now?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I got the question 100%.
So I know, for example, you said you sell unpackaged coffee in shops in Germany and Switzerland. So what are some of the other ways in which you try and reduce your brand's impact on the environment, negative impact on the environment?
So yeah, packaging is a very good point you're making. So what we're trying to do at the moment is to get a really good packaging, and it's been a long journey of actually finding that, because many bags that are called it's recyclable and this is compostable aren't actually compostable or recyclable. So really creating a sustainable packaging is a difficult thing to do, and we're not making this task easy. on ourselves. So what we're actually going to do is to come back to a full 100% plastic bag, which sounds ironic or sad that you have to use 100% plastic in order to be the most sustainable as you can right now. But if you dig deep, that's the best thing that can be done right now. But that highlights pretty much how we work also here in Europe. We're willing to just take on a lot of extra time and a lot of extra efforts to really find the good solution. And our members are willing to carry that with us. That's highlighted pretty well in the zero waste procedure that you also just pointed out. We distribute the coffee at about a fifth of our annual distributions is distributed without packaging. So it's distributed in 10 kilo metal bins that are sent out to either zero waste stores or cafes, but also to the members, to members who have gathered in larger communities where the coffee is being sent to one spot. That's also, I think, something quite unusual, and what makes us special in a way that we're also not just sending the subscription home to all of the members, to some, yes, but the majority of our members is then again sub-organized within a little distribution community. So people are sharing a group of, let's say, 10 to 15 members, and they share one common location where the coffee is being sent to, and every 3 months the members come to pick up their coffee share. And some of these groups have said, okay, we want to do the zero waste thing, which is nice and it's consequent, but it also means more work for them and means more stress. But the people are willing to take on that because now they have to weigh the coffee themselves, and it's also a lot about trust, because members don't come there at one moment, but distributed over days. So you have to trust that the other ones don't take too much coffee and you end up with having none. But it works really well, I must say, and it's nice to observe that things like this can work.
Yeah.
So these are just a couple of examples. I hope I could answer the question.
Yes, you have been able to. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about, you guys have been able to figure out a great way of establishing an international supply chain. What would you say are some of the challenges? We've been through some of these, but what would you say are some of the challenges of creating sustainable value chains? Not just creating them, but also creating something that you can sustain over a long period of time.
Maybe before coming to that question, we could also highlight sustainable practices.
Yes, that's right. That was a question that's hanging in the middle. That's true.
Shine a light on that, David?
Yeah, sure. So this what Marlon just explained is really one part of the production of the whole chain, of the complete chain, and it's very important to tie it also with the production. Why? Because we see coffee as an opportunity for conservation and to improve some ecosystem functions. So, for example, our main focus in the first years is to create soil fertility, and this means that trying to get all of the most possible raw materials from the same farm to make compost and to make liquid compost in order to improve the nutrition of the coffee farms. So this brings productivity higher, but it also makes a more logical approach to sustainability, because we don't rely on chemical fertilizers, which are also expensive and they destruct the soil in a way. So we go the other way around. We create soil fertility mainly with compost and liquid compost, and try to bring the most possible raw materials from within the farm, trying to keep that loop, that circle in the same farm. And then there's another very important part that we do in terms of CO2 capturing. All of the coffee is managed organically, like with organic practices, but it also is under it's shade grown coffee. So this means that there's trees over the coffee trees, higher trees that help to make the coffee plant grow better. This is coffee likes to grow under the canopy of trees, but most of the coffee grown in Mexico is grown under the same shade tree, which was brought initially in the 1980s by the Mexican government from Brazil. So it's kind of nonsense, because when somebody as a drinker, when we see the shade grown coffee, we automatically think that there's trees and this is good, and this is fine. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's our approach is different, because we try to grow native trees to make the shade covering. So these two approaches, I think, that are very significant to improve the ecosystem functions in the coffee farms. And we have been having very good results. For example, the coffee tree, the shade trees are also sometimes could be other fruit trees that bring another source of food for the producers, but also macadamia nuts, for example, that they can also sell and have higher increase in incomes in economic activities. So this part is kind of the base, and then we try to see all of the steps from the production all the way to the cup, and to be the most consequent possible in these activities.
Do you now want to talk about some of the challenges that you have faced while putting this project together, and how you've overcome them?
Sure, I can jump in very briefly with the challenges we face in the production. Climate change is obviously has very drastic effects in the coffee production. So most of the time, the coffee has been growing with a very marked rainy season and dry season, and coffee likes this. Coffee is flowering is triggered by water stress, and so now we have longer rainy periods that kind of make it difficult for the harvest, complicate things in several different ways, and there's also increases in temperatures and drastic decreases in temperatures as well. So this normal coffee is a tropical plant that does not like too much heat nor too much cold. So we've been experiencing frosts, like very long and very drastic frosts that also harm production, right? I would say that these two, like the not very marked normally, like changes in the rainy season and the dry season, and in the temperatures have affected coffee, and we are being very. It's a risk that we are having. And there's another coffee leaf rust. It's a fungus that kills the leaves of the coffee farms, and it decreases production. And this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges to overcome, because most producers rely on inorganic chemicals to treat these fungus, which really don't treat the fungus. They just kill all the fungus around in the coffee farms. So we've been doing several different practices to try to minimize the harm. But as temperatures increase and the rainy seasons prolong or get longer, both help the coffee leaf rust in a way to harm the coffee. So these are some challenges. And I, away from production and towards consumption, I think that another big challenge is the way we transport the coffee. We it's it's very interesting. As Marlon says, it makes it alive in a way, because sometimes you can just program for the exporting, the pickup and the delivery, and you just forget about. And in this case, we see, for example, last year the sailboat got delayed because they found I don't know how to say. I don't know the word in English, but people were floating in the ocean, so they had to take longer. And this, obviously, we had the coffee ready to be put in the sailboat, but then we had to wait, and this makes it kind of a different challenge. It makes it more alive. And maybe you can continue, Marlon.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in and continue where you left off. Yeah, like David says, we're just constantly thrown into new situations that we haven't or we couldn't expect in this way. Like this example that there were some refugees close to the coast of Africa, that the Aventur, that the sailing vessel then in turn rescued and brought back into the harbor, which is a good coincidence that they were there, and that obviously delays the whole planning, and things like this are happening. And also we're depending on the wind and on the weather, not only in production but also in transportation then. And we're still a globalized value chain, so there's just so many elements to consider when you're trying, when you're thriving for sustainability. You just have to see, okay, what kind of materials do we use, what kind of transportation do we use on sea, what kind of transportation do we use on land, what kind of like I elaborated on earlier, what kind of packaging do we use. So there is really no also with our business model, which is so different than what most people are used to. There's really not a lot of copy paste solutions that we can just see in the surrounding and then adapt for ourselves, because many things just don't suit to the way that we work. So we have to wrap our own heads around it, which is super exciting. And that's what also drives my passion for this work, to be constantly facing these challenges and to have this flexibility and to have every day a new task. That's something great, and I think it's such a privilege to have in the job. But as a business, this of course is a challenge, which also kind of is highlighted in the prices. Obviously, like I said, the coffee, just the transport is immensely expensive. Also on the production part, which is put the most money, because there are the highest leverages for sustainable impact, I would say, on the soil, but also on the social dimension. But yeah, all that drives a price. So we have coffee, which is a luxury good, but with the things that we want to do, it comes at a high price. So it's of the luxury product coffee, it's in the luxury segment. You can say you can get cheaper coffee, and that's a constant battle, so to say. Like, okay, how expensive can we get so that we can achieve what we want to achieve? But what point is too expensive? So at what point are people not able anymore to pay the coffee? Because that's already what we hear many times. Wow, we love your project, but I just can't afford the coffee. And you can't blame the people saying that. It's a luxury good, and yeah, that's something that we always have to consider. Of course, you can say, okay, then maybe drink a little less coffee, but it's still reality. Like, we're still competing, even though we're trying to work next to the market system. Of course, in the world we live in today, we're still in how you say, in the I'm missing the word. I'm sorry.
You're still competing with others.
In the competition with others. So yeah, that's some challenges from my perspective.
But that also leads me to think you have a pretty unconventional model going on. It's very interesting, and it's also wonderful that all of you have come together to actually make this a reality. But do you see a model like Teikei? Do you think something like that is replicable? Do you think other producers can adopt a model like this and make it work?
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that that's a great possibility. We have actually started an initiative, an association on the site called Teikei Global, which is trying to do exactly that, to take out the essence, like the Teikei essence out of Teikei Coffee. Like, how does this work? How is this community supported approach set up, and make it reproducible in other areas? And actually, there is some initiatives. That's not the same team; it's different people that have started implementing this way of doing value chains, of creating value chains for different products. For example, there's a Teikei olive value chain, bringing over high standard, high quality olive oil from Greece to Germany. And there's also other smaller initiatives that have started doing this. And I think what's our agenda at Teikei Coffee is to create this pilot project to show, okay, this is really working, and then offering the experience that we have gathered over the years to other people, and see that there's more value chains like ours thriving up in different areas.
That's great. My last question to you is that you've managed to, and maybe David can come into this question as well, you've managed to create an extremely strong community of coffee producers in Mexico and consumers in Germany and in Switzerland. And you've done it in a climate neutral way. How do you see this community growing? You've already spoken to me a little bit about the pilot and how you're sort of taking this to other products. But what are the other ways in which you see this community grow?
Yeah, in the production part, first of all, we have a model in which there's nuclei. So every time there's an increase, for example, in demand or more consumers, they would have to arrange themselves and organize themselves for this distribution and this logistics. And in a way, it's similar in the production. So when we have an increase that we cannot supply with our production nowadays, we bring more producers into the model. So growing in number of producers is one way, but we are also I am also convinced that the productivity of the coffee farms can be raised quite fairly with organic practices. So this is, I would say, this is our perspective in growth for the future of production, to increase productivity within the same coffee farms so that we don't extend the agricultural frontier and don't bring down forests to plant coffee. So I would say that these two ways are the guidelines for growing.
Nice. And yeah, just to answer the question from the European perspective, maybe there is a really nice example coming from the Swiss team right now. So like I said, we're working in Germany with the community and in Switzerland as well. And I'm working in the German team, but there's also an association that works for the Swiss community. And the Swiss community now is starting, or has the idea, and is trying to start this, or will start this in the upcoming months, to have like a solidarity-based payment model. So in some community-supported agricultures, you've got something like called like a bidding round. So you don't only you're not working only solidarily with the farmers, but also with the co-producers, or with the other consumers, so to say. And that's done by, you don't set a certain price, but you say, okay, we are 100 people and we have to pay 100,000 euros for next year's harvest. So let's come together, and it's not just done, okay, everyone pays 1,000 and we're good, but we're doing a bidding round and putting all the number down on the card and putting it in a hat, and then we calculate and see, okay, do we have 100,000, or do we have to do another round? And by this, the person that is situated not so well with money can put down a little bit less than the average, and some people could put a little bit more than the average, and by that supporting other people that do not have as much money. And how the Swiss team now is thinking to adapt a first version of this model is to implement three prices. So in the middle you have the sweet spot, everything is covered, but nothing more, nothing less. Everything is included. You've got one price down there. Okay, if you can't pay if you can't afford the coffee for the higher price, you pick this price, and it excludes certain things, and the excluded things are listed underneath. But you can choose this price if you're if you're a person that just can't afford the coffee otherwise. And then on the other side of the average, you have a price higher, where you pay more than that kilo, or than that amount of coffee would actually cost, because you're supporting a person that can't afford the medium price or the higher price. And I think that's also a very nice growth in community, and in community of consumers in this sense, to say, okay, let's not only see that we do all the other factors well, but let's also see that we have different realities in terms of money. And even in Germany or Switzerland, which are countries that are in general, we have quite a comfortable situation with money, but even here we have differences, and we should acknowledge that within this community. And I'm really curious how this is going to go, but I have high hopes, and I'm pretty certain that the community, as I know it, that it will work out just fine.
So too, we certainly do. Thank you very much for this conversation. I invite you now for the deep dive. I hope our participating audience will see us there as well. Thank you very much.